Okay, hello and welcome to Bookish Brits. My name is Michelle and today I would like to do an original book tag called the Toolbox Book Tag. Just to give you some background on this tag, I have two small children and I woke up one morning with both of them in bed with me, the TV on really loud, and what are we watching? Handy Manny. So I figure anything, even tools, can be related back to books. So let's get started. There are 7 questions that relate to different tools. Feel free to adapt the questions and the tools to your own needs, but here we are. For your hammer, the first question, I'd like you to pick a book that you were forced to read, and for me I'm going to choose The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, which is a school required book when I was in middle school. I hadn't heard about it beforehand. I fell in love, I cried and I cried. I'm sure that as soon as I finished this book I did immediately start back at page 1 and read it again. This is my very well loved copy that I found recently. It's still one of my favorite books in the entire world. So for question 2, Screwdriver, I would like you to pick your most twisty-turny book, and now for this question I'm going to choose Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, which I read many years ago and I was so surprised by it. Each twist and turn in the plot and the characters' motivations left me absolutely breathless with excitement. My heart was pounding. I had no idea where the plot was going. It was an incredible book and I really recommend it. Now for question 3, I would like you to pick a book in which there was a relationship that sawed your heart in half. For this question I'm going to choose the relationship between Tessa and Will and Jem in the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. The thing that I loved the most about this story is the relationship between these 3 main characters. I thought it was beautifully written and I was in floods of tears over the way everything works out in this book. Next up we have a tape measure, and for this I would like you to pick the largest book that you own, and for me that is A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth. You can see how very long it is. I first read this book 13 years ago when I moved from the US to the UK, and a friend of my husband's recommended that I read it. It's the story of a girl whose parents are trying to find her a suitable husband. But it's also a book about India and the different conflicts that arise as it's going through its independence. It was really good, but look at that! And for question 5, I have my wrench, and for this question I would like you to pick an author that writes the most heart-wrenching stories. Now there are many different authors that I could have chosen for this, but I decided to go with Phil Earle, the author of Being Billy, Saving Daisy, and also Heroic. Being Billy was his debut novel and it is the book that I cried the most about. It's about a boy, Billy, who is a teenage boy in a care home and he's incredibly angry at the unfairness of his life. He has a little brother and sister that keep him going, and the thing that I loved the most about this book is definitely the relationship that Billy has with his care worker, Ronnie. It was a wonderful book, and the companion novel to it, which is also really wonderful and emotional, and Heroic is about 2 brothers, one who has gone off to be a soldier in Afghanistan, and all 3 of these books have amazing characters and relationships and a wonderful story. Phil Earle does have a new book coming out this April, The Bubble Wrap Boy, and apparently it's less gritty, more funny. I really hope that I enjoy that book as much as I've enjoyed his previous 3 books. For question number 6, we have a pair of pliers, and I would like you to answer which is the book that we couldn't tear away from you for anything. Now for this question, I would definitely have to choose The Boxcar Children by Gertrude Chandler Warner. This is my absolute favorite book in the entire world. I love it. I've had it since I was a little girl. It is amazing. I loved the characters in this book. I loved the relationships between the brothers and sisters. I loved the idea of them living in this boxcar alone and being very self-sufficient. I love the illustrations in the book. It's a very simple book to read, but it is still one of my favorites. I love it to bits. And for the seventh and final question in this tag, we have our Chisel. And for this question, I would like you to answer a book that you didn't have that much interest in at the start, but as the story went on, that disinterest was slowly chipped away and it became a book that you really loved. Now for this book, I'm going to go with Serafina by Rachel Hartman. Before I read this book, I only had a very mild interest in fantasy books. I hadn't really read anything about dragons before, but as soon as I started reading it, and I started reading Rachel's beautiful writing style, her wonderful characters, and this political intrigue, this world building around dragons and shapeshifters. It was very surprising, it was very emotional, and I cannot wait for any future follow-ups to this book, because this book is now one of my favorites of all time. So at the end, this is what my toolbox looks like. What does yours look like? Those were the 7 questions in the Toolbox Book Tag. I would like to tag the other members of the Bookish Brits who booktube on their own channels. That's Debbie from Snuggling on the Sofa, A Daydreamer's Ramblings, Lucy from The Bumbling Bibliophile, and Fiona from Eventide Reads. I would also like to tag Amber from The Mile Long Bookshelf. I'd like to tag Danny from The Performing Bookshelf. I'd like to tag Katie from Kit Kats Can Read. I'd like to tag Megan Olivier and Miranda from Books 101. Thank you!